Hello, and welcome to a very special edition of Wright Virtual Visits. I'm Anna Kaplan, Executive Director of Graycliff in Derby, New York, and I'll be your host today, leading you through an episode that has become an annual tradition for us, featuring 8 Wright sites that have been recognized as UNESCO World Heritage Sites. We like to schedule this episode for the month of July as it marks the anniversary of these 8 sites being inscribed to the UNESCO World Heritage List by the World Heritage Committee in July 2019. Not only was this monumental in terms of Frank Lloyd Wright's legacy, but this marked the first modern architecture designation on the UNESCO World Heritage List in the United States. Of the 1,092 World Heritage Sites around the world, this group of Wright sites are among just 23 sites in the United States. So today we'll be hopping from coast to coast and hearing a little about each of these 8 important sites. Before we go any farther, let me start by acknowledging my partner in the 2024 edition of this program, Eric Rogers of the Frank Lloyd Wright Building Conservancy. Eric is currently and very reliably behind the scenes, making the program run smoothly. And as always, please add any questions or comments on the Facebook thread, and Eric will be working to be attentive to this. And we should have some time today to respond to your questions in the Q&A portion of the program. We will certainly do our best. Also, a huge thank you to the team at Forever Ready Productions. Today we have Scott helping us out behind the scenes. We would not be able to continue Wright Virtual Visits without Forever Ready's professional support. Let's take a minute to play a brief video about their production firm and the services they offer. Thank you again to Scott, Allison, and the whole team at Forever Ready for producing Wright Virtual Visits today and all of our episodes. In 2019, the group of 8 sites we're going to be hearing about today were inscribed to the UNESCO World Heritage List after a collaborative effort that took more than 15 years. These 8 sites span 50 years of Wright's career and were thoughtfully identified during an extensive process because of their outstanding universal value, or OUV for short. OUV is the basis of any nomination to the UNESCO World Heritage List. And according to UNESCO, OUV means cultural and or natural significance, which is so exceptional as to transcend national boundaries and to be of common importance for present and future generations of all humanity. This group of 8 sites each represents a different period of Wright's oeuvre and different criteria for OUV. For today's episode, we have gathered a group of fantastic and knowledgeable colleagues, each presenting on one of these 8 sites. We gave them a very simple directive this year and asked them to each give a brief presentation speaking about what inspires them personally about their particular site. We were intentionally open-ended here and vague, knowing that with this group of wonderful minds, we'd get some very unique insights. The 8 sites will be presented in chronological order based on construction. And Scott, you can throw up the PowerPoint first slide now, please. Unity Temple in Oak Park. Today, we will be hearing from the wonderful Marta Wojcik on this property. Marta is, of course, the executive director and curator of the Westcott House in Springfield, Ohio. Then we have the Roby House right nearby, and Briar Owens, museum manager and archivist at the Frank Lloyd Wright Trust, will be sharing their thoughts. Then we move to Taliesin and are joined today by both Preservation Director Ryan Hewson and Communication Coordinator Elizabeth Mask. After which, we'll travel virtually to the West Coast, where we'll hear from Lee Wishner, Projects Curator at Hollyhock House. Then on to Falling Water, where School Programs and Outreach Manager Amy Humbert will be giving her insights. Then to the privately owned Herbert and Catherine Jacobs House in Madison, Wisconsin, where John Dennis, the current owner of this site, will be presenting. Then off to Taliesin West in Scottsdale, Arizona, and we have Fred Perzillo from the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation here with us today to present on that site. And finally, we will wrap up with the 8th site on the UNESCO World Heritage List, the Solomon R. Guggenheim Museum, which took 7 years to construct and opened 6 months after Wright's unexpected death in 1959. I have the pleasure of personally presenting on the Guggenheim today. Before we get started, I wanted to mention that the Frank Lloyd Wright Building Conservancy has organized all of the info related to the Wright UNESCO inscription on their website. Scott, could you pop up that address? It's savewright.org/who-we-are/World Heritage. And as always, this program exists as an educational tool as well as to build awareness around Frank Lloyd Wright and his legacy. And we are really hoping that many of you will actually visit these sites in person. Please note that before each presenter, there will be a website listed where you can find out more information on how to visit that site and tour. So without further ado, I'm going to throw it over to Marta to start us off on our virtual whirlwind tour. Over to you, Marta, and I'll see you on the other side.
Hello, everyone. I'm thrilled to talk to you a bit about Unity Temple. My personal adventure with Frank Lloyd Wright started in Oak Park when I volunteered as a guide at the Home and Studio. So here we are. Let's talk about Unity Temple. If you could move to the first slide. All right. Here is the church, and here is the steeple. Open the door and see all the people. This was Saints Rest, also known as Oak Park, where Wright established his career. Saints Rest, with its steeples and pitched roofs and all the familiarity of traditional styles. 3 churches seen here are examples of what the Oak Park community was used to. And then there is one rebel on the right. Out goes the steeple, out with the pitched roof. As far as Saints' Rest is concerned, the year the Unity Temple was completed, some saints surely lost some sleep. Next, please. The Unity Temple fiercely broke the norms and expectations of what we would believe a house of worship should look like. As the brochure commemorating the groundbreaking informs us, this building was a frank, yes, that's what it says, a frank return to the simpler and more ancient forms of religious architecture. Wright surely provided a lot of input for this brochure, but think of it, someone actually had to buy into his vision, even after seeing these bold and completely unfamiliar forms shaping up on his drawing board. Next, please. The congregation states every radical departure from the customary must make its appeal to reason to determine its worth and truth. Wright successfully provided a solution that responded to a given problem, perhaps except the one about the limited financial resources, as the project proved to far exceed the budget after all. Next, please. I wonder which drawing Wright was really eager to show them first, to best convey his vision. What would be the one that would show the essence of this remarkably different building? The most logical, I suppose, is the image of the exterior, because that would naturally preoccupy everyone. They say don't judge the book by its cover, but we all do it anyway. And as memorable as this cover is in this case, the inside holds a real treasure. Next, please. Years later, Wright reflected, Unity Temple is where I thought I had it. This idea that the reality of the building does not consist in the walls and the roof, but in the space within. This is a direct reference to the Book of Tea published in 1906, the year of the Unity Temple project. Kakuzo Okakura, the author of the Book of Tea, also states, the beauty could be discovered only by one who mentally completed the incomplete. Meaning, the walls are in the service of the space, and the space is in the service of the lives lived within. Next, please. Our presence and the sense of enlightenment we experience in this space complete this spectacular work of art and asserts its universal value to all humanity. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Briar. I'm from the Frederick Roby House here in Hyde Park, Chicago, and I'm going to be presenting on the Roby House here. So the Roby House completed construction in 1910. And next slide. So one question I get asked a lot about the Roby House is what inspires me about the Roby House and Frank Lloyd Wright's architecture. And the number one thing that I would say would be Wright's attention to detail with his homes that he creates here. And the number one thing that stands out to me, working here from the morning all the way into the night, the afternoon, is Wright's play on both light and dark within his homes here. And you can really see that here at Roby House. Next slide. So with Wright's architecture here at Roby House, you're really going to see this play, this kind of orchestra of light. Rooms are going to be dark where he wants them to be dark and light where he wants them to be light. So this room here would be the entry hall of the home. So the first space that you would enter the home here. And you can see it's a little bit darker here. A lot of the windows are blocked off with screens both to the left and right of the main staircase here. Again, really adding this kind of dark compression of a space. And as you head up the staircase here, you'll take 3 left turns and you'll end up in the next slide. You end up in the living room of the Roby House, that main kind of iconic shot of the home. If you've ever been there, that main focal point of the home, you have that contrast of that very light with that very dark space here. So here you have multiple modes of lighting. You have all of the windows wrapping the walls, brass light fixtures along the walls, and on the ceiling, globe lights light right down the center there. And again, this is going to allow for so much light in this space. And eventually, when all of that sun goes away, all of that artificial light will greatly illuminate that space here. And you can see that on the next slide here. The Roby House at night. Again, this is 1910 for a home, so this would be a sight to see. Again, a very modern home for the time. And you can see with all of those artificial lights, it really greatly illuminates the home. So you can use it any day of the year, any time of the year. The home is always very well lit. And we can go to my last slide here. So you can see that comparison. Roby House in the daytime, Roby House at the nighttime, again, very well lit. And the house itself stretches from east to west, east being the very far end of the building in the photo, west being the closest, and the main face of the building facing south. So again, this home essentially is going to follow the arc of the sun. So going from east to west, the sun comes up in the east. It's on the far end of your building, shining into that third floor by the tree line. The light's going to be in your bedrooms where you need it in the morning. Then in the afternoon, your sun's coming down to the west. It's shining under that roof line right into that living room that I just showed you. So again, the light is going to be where you need it for your afternoon entertainment. And again, it really shows you that great attention to detail, that everything goes into Wright's architecture, from all of the fine design elements to the way that he plays with natural and artificial light. And that's what I would find to be my inspiration with the Roby House here, that just that great attention to detail. So again, thank you guys.
And when I'm asked what inspired me about Taliesin, one of there are many answers to that question, but today I've chosen to share with you how Taliesin wears the various seasons from spring all the way to winter, even though we may not want to think about winter just yet. It's gorgeous here. So if you could pull up the first slide. And here what we see is not Taliesin, in fact, but it's the apple orchard that's located to the west of Taliesin that Wright designed and planted beginning in 1911 with the help of Jens Jensen. And you see the apple blossoms, and along with that, what you're not seeing is there's also wild plums and these other beautiful things that flower in April and remind us of the promise and beauty of spring, that bring their smell into the spaces through the open windows, and Wright talks about that. Now if you could go to the next slide. You see here, this is looking up at Taliesin from below, and we can see that Taliesin is sort of receding into the lushness of summer and all the beautiful prairie grasses and flowers. The gardens are bursting with life. And so actually, in a way, Taliesin takes a back seat to the nature. It's always interesting and inspiring to me, not only that it fits its site, but it fits the characteristics of the seasons of its site. Now, if we could bring up the next one. We can see what's my personal favorite and most inspiring to me, is I've always felt that Taliesin wears fall the best, wears all the seasons beautifully. But here we see the beautiful yellows of the birch tree that complement the yellow of, that complements the beige and yellow of the outside plaster at Taliesin. It also harkens to the sand in the river. And so it kind of just this whole connection, and at fall it's just gorgeous with all the colors, but Taliesin really seems to come forward at that moment and be part of the fall foliage and part of that exuberance. Now if we go to the next one. This one's a little bit tighter in on the tower, and you can see now we're in late fall, where really nature falls back and it becomes stripped and bare, and you can see its structure and its reflection, how its shadows play on the walls and play across, and Taliesin is allowed to come forward out of that. And it's just an inspiring sight how it kind of projects off of the hill in a different way with the fall light, with this later fall light, and also with the trees giving way to the full view of the building. And then the final picture, what we see is the snow there's building up on the roofs. This is looking from kind of the work quarter entry to Taliesin up towards that tower. And you can see how the different roof lines are even enhanced by the snow, in fact. And as Wright said himself, Taliesin becomes a frosted palace in winter, capped with ice and snow. And so you see how that also plays this part. And then you can imagine, just imagine the beautiful sounds of the snow crunching underneath your feet and the little bit of gravel as you're going through, and then that beautiful light that comes in the winters that is a little bit more harsh and direct, and you can see shadows more, and you can see the building and how the sun or the snow and the icicles pick out all the details. So I really just wanted to say that that's inspiring to me constantly, and is something that I, being here all year round, get to experience. And it's like seeing the building. Why it inspires me is that each season that it changes, it's like seeing the building anew, like greeting an old friend in a new dress. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lee Wishner, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the things that inspire me about Hollyhock House. What you're seeing behind me, and we'll go to slide 1, is the living room. Such a dramatic space. Who wouldn't be inspired by it? The themes that come into play here are Japanese aesthetics, and I really respond to that in this building in general, but in this space in particular. The bas-relief over the fireplace, this dramatic bas-relief, relates to motifs that were being used in the Imperial Hotel in Tokyo, which Wright was concurrently building at the same time as Hollyhock House. And Wright had an incredible interest, an intense interest in Japanese arts, and in fact collected and dealt in prints and other items. And in fact, Aline Barnsdall acquired the Japanese folding screens in this room from Wright, and they serve to visually extend the outdoor space to the indoor space and vice versa, which is a very common theme in what was called this garden home. Next slide, please. What we see here are the Mayan and Mesoamerican influences. They're much more evident in the cast art stone friezes and finials, the colonnades, and even planter boxes. Hollyhock House has its own unique California romanza style, which is a reference, a freeform, a musical structure reference that Wright intended. It's much more put together from a lot of different elements, shall we say. The interior patio photograph is by Baroque Baker in 1925, and it really shows the only holdover from the traditional Spanish style of building, that the type of architecture that Wright considered to be tawdry colonialism. But it is a centerpiece of this home. Next slide, please. So apart from the aesthetic details that inspire me at Hollyhock House, which they're abundant, it's actually Aline Barnsdall's spirit that really guides me the most. Her grand vision for a multi-purpose arts complex on Olive Hill was so philanthropic and unique. And though her residence here was short-lived before she gifted the entire property to the city of Los Angeles in 1927, she enjoyed time here with family and friends, as her family photo album documents. And here she is with one of her beloved dogs in the patio. And you notice the furniture. Next slide. While Frank Lloyd Wright designed furniture for the house's living and dining rooms, Aline favored her own furnishings in other spaces, including the terraces and patios. These are rooms for outdoor living. And photographs from the 1920s show Aline and her daughter Betty and friends using all manner of furniture like wrought iron and wicker and gliders with awnings in the garden on the lawns. Next slide. And something, in the very present moment that really inspires me about Hollyhock House are the opportunities we have to expand our dialogue with local design, architecture, and art communities. So this is summer seating, lawn and bee zippy at Hollyhock House, and it builds on Aline's legacy by inviting women-led design practices in our community, lawn and bee zippy, to activate the South Terrace with furnishings, allowing visitors to engage with Wright's garden house as Barnsdall had, and as she wished the public would, in gifting her property to the city. So it's a very lively place to be. There's beauty everywhere you look, and I'm really just grateful to be part of it. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Amy Humbert. Fallingwater was completed, the main house, in 1937 as a vacation home for the Kaufman family of Pittsburgh. And when I was asked to think about what inspires me about this building, that was actually kind of a difficult choice because there are so many things that inspire me. But like Breyer, who spoke about the Roby House, I decided I wanted to talk a bit about what this building is like at night. So if you can pull up that first image, I have a beautiful shot by Christopher Little of falling water at night. Edgar Kaufman Jr., the son of the original owners, once said that falling water looks not unlike a Japanese lantern in the darkness. And I think that's a wonderful description of this building. Falling water is not located in, of course, the city. It is located in a rural area. There is no outside lighting around it. So when you see this building at night, what you see is it glowing from the inside out. Lights are placed along the windows, and so you see those horizontal bands of windows lit up, and the building does truly appear to be almost glowing. Um, it's very, very dark, as I said, down in that valley. So the opportunity to see falling water at night is something that never fails to just blow me away. If you can go ahead with the next slide, then the images that I have are all by Christopher Little, and this is just taken slightly a little bit farther down, looking from what would be the bridge across Bear Run, and I think you can see the way that building does beautifully glow from the inside out. Also, what inspires me too with this building is certainly the connection to nature. When you are inside, it feels very much like you are a part of the outdoors. Windows wrap almost around 3 sides of that first floor. So even here, as we're standing outside the building, we're able to look really straight through to the other side of the house because there is that much glass that's used. Over 1,800 square feet of glass was actually used in this building. And the way light was used was a very Wright did a very special thing with it, which was that we have very little overhead lighting, with the exception of one large light in the living room. But throughout the house, most of the light is placed by the windows, and so that does help to light the building from the inside out. And actually, if we can show that next slide. This is taken from what we refer to as Lillian Kaufman's Terrace, or it has sometimes also been called the master bedroom terrace as well. But I think this illustrates the way light is used in a couple of ways. We do have light placed along the windows, but the rest of the lighting is placed around the perimeter of the room rather than overhead. And so in this case, you can see that there are fluorescent tubes placed actually along the very top of the cabinets at the back of the room. And that kind of helps give that soft, very warm glow, which you see when you're when you're outside the building. It is a magical thing, I think, to see falling water lit up at night. And it's, if you ever have the opportunity to do so, we do occasionally have special events in the evening. So it is it is quite magical to be able to see the building. We get a lot of questions when people are touring during the day. You know, they expect that maybe it's very dark inside at night, and that's really not the case. I mean, are there hallways and some places, passageways that are darker? Yes, but the rooms themselves are very warmly lit, and I think that surprises people quite a bit. We're facing to the southwest, so Wright did take advantage of getting a lot of natural light into every one of the rooms throughout the day. But for me, what is, I think, the most inspiring is to actually see what he's done with light and to see the building at night. Thank you.
Hello, my name is John Dennis, and I want to make a correction. I'm the son of the owner of the Herbert and Catherine Jacobs Usonia 1. My dad is an art historian from the University of Wisconsin, and he is currently traveling in Europe. So I'm standing in for him, and we're very humbled to be amongst the pantheon of these Wright buildings with UNESCO World Heritage status. And recently, we can take a look at the first slide. I teamed up with a photographer named Ed Knowlton from Skyhawk Studio to take new photographs of the property. And it was an incredible experience for me. And in this context of what inspires us through photography was perfect to start out here with this photo. It has, I have to preface too that Ed asked me, how are we going to take photographs? What should I take photographs of? And I said, well, let's take Pedro Guerrera's photographs and use them as a guide to how to look at the house. Pedro Guerrero was Frank Lloyd Wright's photographer for many years. And so we tried to take the historical vantage points with new technology and with color photography and really look at the house. And I was looking at the house with fresh eyes. My dad's owned the house since the 80s, and I was involved with the restoration, and so I've been around it a long time. But to stand back and actually investigate the house with photography was great. It truly inspired me, and I could see how Frank Lloyd Wright had designed something that was incredible, like a prism that you can look at it from different angles, and they're all interrelating, and there's themes that are continually echoed through the house, right, from the outside to the inside. So this image, I want to make note, is still, this is a big turning point for him with the Usonia style homes. And this was a relatively inexpensive job, right? But he loved a challenge. And so the challenge, in my opinion, shows it's this smaller home, but all the elegance of his thinking is there. And so this, I call the prairie ship. And my dad actually has planted a true prairie in front of the house that they burn it down in the fall and let it grow again. And so it's like part of the essence of the house. And I feel like after seeing the Roby house again this morning, that you can see it. It's still there, right? It's still thinking about it, but it's this new Usonian style. So I want to point out too that there's these lines that are continually in the home, the red brick and this clear story windows. But under the clear story windows, it's a little hard to see in this photograph, there's 3 ledges that build up to the main, soffit, the front side. And that type of thing echoes all the way into the inside of the house. Now you'll see here too, Frank Lloyd Wright traditionally sort of hid the front of the building to, like to where you walk in. It's sort of private to the street, and you can see these things that are consistent that are still in the smaller home. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see that the house opens up on the back side, and it faces southeast, and so that the light does shine there in the mornings, right? It lights up the house, and you can see this incredible opening up with the windows, and these are doors. Like today, now they have big sliding glass panels and things like that, but he had figured out you can make doors, and you can open up all these window doors and make that whole room open living. And this is 1936 and 37 when the house was actually created. And so the this photo echoes Pedro's photography. I've looked at it many times. Now, the thing that's fun is that now you can see the house in the nature with the colors and with the plants and things relating to it, and see how beautifully it fits with the lines projecting out. And then you can see, again, I'll point this out, you can see those horizontal lines in those board and batten walls. The house does not have insulation. It's literally these wooden walls. So then, because we are short on time, I want to go to the next image, which is a Pedro style image that shows the expansiveness and also this interrelating with nature, and this in this backyard that opens up from this private space in the front, and these rhythms. I mean, it's almost like music, and from every corner of the house you can look at it and see these rhythms repeating, and you can see a little better the 3 steps up to the main line on the roof there, and that'll be important when we get back inside. But you can also see the living room and those windows and window doors. And then what's nice, my dad's kind of helped restore everything and built out these fences that were included in the design, and extends the house. If you can feel the length of the house from looking at it. So then let's take a look at the inside. There's 2 more photographs to look at, and you can see there it is. It's like this song that keeps playing, that you can feel all these rhythms and these relationships with these boards and battens and the stripes and the bricks, that now you're inside of it, and the hearth is open, and it's almost like could be a campfire, like he was intending that this was a stone in the woods, and you could stay cool and warm in the winter because it's got heat running through it. But then in the summer, you could open up all the windows, and he swore you could open up all the windows and stand on the heated floor and you'd be fine too. It is Wisconsin, so I don't know about that. But the thing that I want to point out that my dad pointed out to me is there's this triple line that runs from the outside under the soffits to the inside, and you can see it starting over there over the breakfast table. There's these boards that build this triple line, and you can see too, even with the windows, you're bouncing outside, feeling these rhythms. And then the hearth is an amazing, center stone to the house, and how it has this rhythm that keeps moving. It doesn't static. He built it. It's kind of off centered, and then there's a seat there for tending to the fire, and there's just all these things that are incredible that he was able to play through here. And in some ways, I feel like since it's a smaller house, he was able to he's like play it with all his fascination in this smaller space. So then another traditional image, and the last one that we have here, is the opposite direction from that in the hearth, and looking into the living room. And now we've seen that living room from the back in the other slides, and you can see here that I put this image in here. This is the one that gives me the skin tingles, is that the rhythm is everywhere. It's just nonstop, and this is the living space with a high ceiling, and the windows to the left open up, or the doors open up, and Herbert Jacobs literally sat in that desk instead of in the back. There's a study that was built for him, but it's small and it's kind of closed off, and so he did his writing at that desk. And so back to just the theme of inspiration, you can see it playing all through this with the horizontal lines, and then the way he played it through the ceiling, and then these it's a little difficult to see near the clear story windows, but there's this 1, 2, 3 of those boards that rise up, that is a sub melody that he's playing with the house. And so it was a great opportunity to speak to you all about this inspiration, and from doing this investigation through photography to look deeper at the house for me. And I'm inspired, and Ed and I are going to be going back to work on this more, to keep developing the heritage of this home. Why is this house this level of status? You can start to see it by just looking at it with the photography. So thank you for the time, and this is a start of something that I'm very inspired to be involved with. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. I'm Fred Perzillo. I'm the Nord McClintock Family Vice President of Preservation and Collections for the Franklin Wright Foundation. And I'm going to talk today about what really inspires me about what Wright did here at Taliesin West. And what I really appreciate is how Wright is celebrating the desert all throughout Taliesin West. You can see in this image from around 1950 just how impressive the siting of Taliesin West is in the desert. When he came out here, there was nothing out here. It was just open range. And it was a landscape that he really appreciated. He, as we all know, geometries play a big part of Wright and his designs. And coming from Wisconsin, where it was very lush, soft green grasses and leafy trees, when he got out to the desert, he proclaimed that it was, geometry everywhere. You look at the cacti, you look at the rocks, the mountains, and I think just this link with the geometries and his thinking around architecture, I think he just really felt the power of the desert. And it really impressed him. Next slide, please. And so, we know that Wright's organic architecture really plays off of the site, the geometries of the site, the land, where he incorporates those geometries into the design of the building to link the building to that site. Here, obviously Wright does that with the building, but he celebrates the landscape around the building, the immediate landscape, and the region. And here, this is a composition right as you enter Taliesin West. On the left is his office, on the right, the drafting studio. And it's one of my favorite compositions on the property. And here, Wright is incorporating information that he, obtained through his appreciation of woodblock prints. Wright was a great lover of Asian art. Woodblock prints were of his, favorite. And in woodblock prints, they're a very flat, layered scene. In a print, you might have a street or a stream at the bottom of the image. Layered behind that, maybe a village. Layered behind that, some trees. Layered behind the trees, mountain, sky. And here, Wright does that in three-dimensional. He brings you into this entry court, then he brings you up a flight of steps to the fountain that you can see there. Then he rotates your view 45 degrees and brings you up to the garden squares and the citrus grove. Layered behind that is the mountain, and the layered behind that is the sky. Really an amazing composition and a very impressive architectural maneuver to take this idea from, print to 3 dimensions, and all the while celebrating the landscape around him, celebrating Taliesin Mountain right behind the building. Next slide, please. This is an image as you approach the prow. So the area where the community would often gather that overlooks the valley. Here, Wright is taking your eye off of the property and linking you to the region. Here, the pathway leading out to the point of the prow kind of extends, and as the prow is elevated at the end there, about 6 feet off the ground, this walkway gives the illusion of just kind of pulling you right off the site and connecting you to the desert beyond. And you can kind of see the Sakatan Mountains there in the distance, right? So he's pulling your eye off of the site and linking you to monuments in the landscape to really kind of show you, this is a place that is deeply connected to the Sonoran Desert. Next. Here, Wright's framing views off again to the distance, just like that first image that I showed you of with the woodblock prints. Here you can really see the layered view of the valley. He's framing the view through the breezeway of the property and then showing you the desert floor. The Papago Mountains are the smaller mountains in the front there. Behind that are then the Estrella Mountains. So again, he's pulling your eye off the site and linking you to the site. This image also really shows how much elevation Taliesin West has above the valley floor. And Wright really loved that grand view of the valley floor and wanted to celebrate it. He said it was like standing on the rim of the world, overlooking the universe. So he was very impressed by the landscape and his site here. Next, please. And then finally, here's another image of Wright framing the views. This is a historic image. He's really creating almost like a screen or a painting for you to look at, right? He's framing the cinder cones off on the distance and creating an image for you. We often see him doing this in the buildings. So when you're on the, inside of the building, he'll use the ribbon windows to frame the view outside and almost create it like it's a painting hanging on a wall, right? Here he's also does that outside along the main walkway, framing the cinder cone off in the distance. So Taliesin West, located in the Sonoran Desert. The desert has a real presence and a strength, and I think Wright just loved that, and I love how he celebrates the desert here with everything he does at Taliesin West. Thanks. I hope you can visit soon.
Thank you so much, Fred. So me again, and I'm so happy for the opportunity to talk about one of my favorite buildings today, the Guggenheim. This is a building near and dear to my heart and one that I've had the opportunity to visit many, many times over the years. I'm personally fascinated by the relationship of this building with its function as an art museum and the changing dialogue between the architecture and the art inside. Next slide, please. Wright was never able to see this building completed as it opened in October 1959, which was 6 months after his death in April of that same year. Here's a photo of Wright in 1945 with a model for the building. Next slide, please. This was Wright's first commission in New York City, and I love how in this dense urbanity, Wright has managed something that is both striking and surprising, but also completely in harmony as it connects very intentionally with the nature of Central Park just across the street. I also love how controversial the building was at the time it was constructed. Critics were quick to bash the aesthetics and compared it to a washing machine, an inverted oatmeal bowl, and, quote, an oversized and indigestible hot cross bun, among many other unflattering comparisons. Yet, despite all of this pretty intense criticism, the Guggenheim is now a truly beloved architectural icon and often a symbol for the culture of the city itself, a true cultural success. In fact, it was the youngest to be designated a National Historic Landmark, which happened in 2008 when it was just 49 years old. Most buildings don't receive this designation until they've been standing for, at the very least, 50 years. Next photo, please. When you talk about the Guggenheim, you cannot help but discuss modern and contemporary art, as is the mission of the organization then and now. I took this photo myself in 2018 at an exhibition, or these photos, of work by Hilma af Klint, a Swedish artist who passed in 1944, well before this museum opened. Her work is mainly painting based, as you can see, and very at home in the spaces of the building. I personally love how there is a tension between the building itself and the work inside. It's not your static white cube. Instead, Wright forces a specific path and experience, while all along the building itself plays a role as a main character in your experience. Next slide, please. Here are photos shared with me by my uncle, Dan Kaplan, who is fortunate to live nearby, of the current exhibition of work by artist Jenny Holzer. This is an installation that takes an entirely different approach. Here, the art is installed to animate the architecture itself, which you can see from images of projections on the exterior and the technology installed on the interior. This is actually a recreation of an installation that happened at the museum in 1989, but manages to feel incredibly fresh, much like the building itself. The building is still in many ways controversial, and as trends in contemporary art move farther and farther away from a two-dimensional painting on the wall, it is not always the most suitable for the art or the building. It's interesting to note that Wright wanted the walls to emulate the tilt of an easel in order to best display works of art, mainly paintings. He actually envisioned leaning paintings against the wall rather than mounting them fully. He was designing for two-dimensional painting, not all artwork. It takes the keen creativity of the artist along with the curatorial staff, as well as an open-mindedness paired with great respect for the building itself to create a successful show in these spaces. And there are many, many memorable shows that benefit from this remarkable building. Next slide, please. I will leave you with a quote from Wright. In 1957, Wright said, "It is all one thing, all an integral, not part upon part." And he said this while standing on the construction site of the Guggenheim, maybe even the same day the photo behind me was taken. All right, Scott, we can. Thank you. Well, phew. I hope you enjoyed that whirlwind dust devil of a virtual tour. It really is one of my favorite episodes that we do. Thank you so much to all of my brilliant colleagues for those really beautiful and inspiring images and insights. And happy 5th anniversary to these 8 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. And thank you for tuning in today. It takes a lot to organize these episodes, especially an episode as complex as today's. Thank you again to all involved, Eric Rogers, Scott Reedy from Forever Ready, and again, all of our Wright colleagues for their generosity with their time today. Can you put up the slide of our next episode, please, Scott? The next edition of Wright Virtual Visits. I don't think that's it, actually. Oh, sorry. Yes, sorry. The next edition of Wright Virtual Visits is September 12th, where we will be traveling virtually to the Pope Leahy House, a Usonian that is now located in Mount Vernon, Virginia, on the grounds of the historic Woodlawn Estate. We've never featured this site before, and we are very excited. So take care, enjoy the rest of your summer, and we look forward to seeing you in September.